Welcome to episode 4 of the Complete Solution Group podcast. We've got a great guest on today. We got Mike Sandidge, the founder and gunsmith over at Fenrir Gunworks. And they have firearms, ammo, optics, accessories, gear supply, and apparel. So we're going to talk to Mike, and we're going to talk about, what he's doing out there in Arizona and the kind of things he's getting involved in. John's been able to go over and visit Mike a few times. I know he's had some gun work done by Mike. So we're going to talk about that and talk about some of the things that he's involved with. All right, John, kicking over to you.
Hey, Fab, thanks. And Mike, welcome. And Fab, you forgot one thing, flamethrowers. That's one thing I noticed on the site was flamethrowers. But before we kick it off to Mike, Fab, as always, I'm big into movie trivia and into history. And the one thing that I noticed is Mike, who is a veteran of the Army. And Mike, thanks for your service, as well as your wife, Tara, and your other partner, Raphael. Thank you all for your service. But going back in time, I was looking at the invention of night vision goggles, or NVG technology, how it was invented in 1929. And then 10 years later, the Germans were using it during World War II. And then they actually started, I think it was in 1943, they started to use that technology on their tanks to actually hunt down whoever's out there in the military. Fast forward, we started to use it more and more in Vietnam. And then in 1980, if you remember, there was the hostage rescue attempt that was a failure back in Tehran, Iran, with the Americans out there. And the military did not have a special operation aviation division, and they literally started to create what is now today the Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the 160th. And, they go there in the military, just how fast they are. They get everything ready within literally 6 months, and they're about to do a second attempt. And all of a sudden they stop because Reagan came into office and all the hostages got released. And then the thing that kind of struck me for some movie trivia, in 87 and 88, and we can remember that by the movie Predator and Die Hard came out at that time. And those pilots started using night vision goggles. The Sword 160s were the first to actually use night vision goggles and FLIR technology to do operations. And then they were involved in what is known as Black Hawk Down. The pilots were out there, then off of going after bin Laden. So, that Sword 160th, they have done a lot for this country. And it's something where, Mike had the... was part of his duties, was in the military. So I just wanted to share that. And on that note, Mike, because it's all good for trivia. All that stuff is Jeopardy knowledge there. So on that note, I'll turn it over to you. So welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. You want me to go through some background on me kind of thing?
Sure.
So I joined the Army in 2002. I volunteered to go straight to 160th. So I got to 160th in 2003. I spent roughly 6 years in Charlie Company, 1st Battalion. So I worked on 30 millimeters, miniguns, rockets, Hellfires, all that stuff on armored Blackhawks for about 6 years. And then from there, I went to Green Platoon. So I became a Green Platoon instructor. So for anybody listening that doesn't know what Green Platoon is, that's the assessment phase for guys coming into the unit. So they have to pass Green Platoon, and there's two sides of it. There's enlisted and officers. But generally what I did was I taught kind of like an advanced combat lifesaver medical phase. I didn't actually teach that part. I'm not a very good medic. We taught land navigation. We did hand-to-hand combatives, and then small arms tactics, M4, M9, transitioning, all that kind of stuff. So taught that for about 3 years and then got out. Went to work for a company fielding Mike Model Blackhawks to the rest of the Army. Then got tired of doing that and wanted to get back into guns. So went over to Afghan, where I was a contractor on the Department of State International Narcotics Law Enforcement contract for about 3 years. Worked on the weapons that are on those helicopters, so miniguns, 240s, and all kinds of other small arms as well. And then went from there to Abu Dhabi, trained their military for about a year on armed 407s. So again, miniguns, rockets, Hellfires, Cal-19s, all the big guns, all the fun guns. Did that for about a year, came home for, being away from the family, coming back home to be with family again. So there I went to Spikes Tactical, was their one of their lead armors for about a year. And then got a job at MD Helicopters, worked for them for about 6 years, trained the Kenyan Army, trained the Lebanese Army, or Lebanese Air Force, trained the Malaysian Army on their new helicopters that they bought from MD. In that time, started up my own business, and now dedicating full time to that. So been doing that since we officially opened in 2020. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, thanks, Mike. We appreciate that. And again, thank you for your service and all you've done. It sounds like you've definitely had some interesting jobs along the way there. Spent a lot of time over in the Middle East, and then getting to work on the big fun guns is probably always a cool thing. The transition into working in the smaller firearms industry, though, what's your drive and passion with that? Is it in training, or is it in customization of firearms? So really, what's your driving factor there?
It's really hard to say what one specific thing is, to be honest, because being a gun guy, customization's always, one of those top tier things. Like I love, tearing a gun apart and upgrading it and changing things and making it better, or taking something that's just been neglected and, restoring it to,
bringing some life
glory
back.
kind of thing. Yeah. So that's always like a really kind of near and dear to my heart. But when I had the idea to start this business, training was actually where my head was at, because not only through my whole career was I a gun guy, but I was also an instructor a lot. And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, you go to a gun shop and you buy a gun, but nobody's there to show you how to use it, and so I was like, well, maybe if I start a business where you buy a gun and you want to see how to, I don't know, fight in a phone booth kind of scenario and get back to that gun. That's important stuff for people to learn, so I could teach that. So and I guess that's where I sit, I think training is more important really than the gun itself. But I like working on the gun too. So
yeah, absolutely agree. Training is such a huge component. I've always believed that anyone who buys a gun needs to train with the gun. It's not just enough to walk into a gun shop and buy a firearm if you've never used one before. You need to seek quality instruction, like guys like yourself who have instructed people in the military how to use firearms. They really need to seek good people so that they can be competent. If they're going to be in a situation on the street, that they actually know how to fight with that gun, and they're not just carrying a hunk of metal that they know nothing about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that I remember hearing somewhere, I'm not going to quote statistics, but I remember hearing at some point in time that I think the number of people that draw a gun in that kind of situation actually get it taken more often than they actually use it. I don't know how true that is, but I mean, I can see it.
But fighting with the gun is a hugely important thing. Most self-defense situations, it's a very close distance. Like most people aren't going to get into a gunfight that's 20, 30 yards away. If something occurs, even if it's in your own home, it's the length of a room usually, and that aggressor is moving forward. So you've got a moving target usually moving at you, and it's things that you definitely got to think about. And like you said, training is such a huge component. So really happy to hear that that's part of your shop. Like, not only are you out there, a big 2A supporter, making sure American citizens can get guns in their hands, but also, it's part of that militia aspect, right? We're all supposed to be able to fight and train with those weapons when we have them. So, that's a great aspect and a very big point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mike, the one thing, when I came down to your shop and talked to you, we were having a kind of discussion about this company and things that Fab and I found out. And one of the big things was that there's a lot of people in, state and local, federal, and the military, when they look for, upgrades, technology innovation when it comes to firearms. What advice would you give them? Because the stories that we were hearing, it was through multiple entities, was they just have their, the fucks that likes, shooting guns, or, they call them like they're geeks there that are into, what's the newest and the latest and greatest. And what we were told, and this is from two different branches of the military, federal government, and actually here with the actually Chandler Police Department, they were saying, like, we just send guys to the internet to find whatever that is. I mean, what would your advice be for those folks that go out there? Because, there's events that you have attended, and I know this year you can't make it, but like the SHOT Show, you walked there, and I knew nothing of it. And when I met Fab up in Denver, I had 21 years of service in, and I never knew that SHOT Show existed, and all the equipment we got, I put on happily, saying, wow, this is bulky. The vest is heavy, the outer plate carrier is sloppy, but that's what the government got us, and that's what we use. And then you go to the SHOT Show and you realize there's, for night vision goggles, there's like 20 different companies, for plate carriers, 20 different companies. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And like, what advice would you give to those officers out there, or even those soldiers that are looking for, hey, I'm going to go into theater, and we were actually told that a lot of these guys would get waivers for their own equipment that they're buying to go to war, which blew my mind. And actually, you told me that before, and actually I mentioned that when we were there. And then the other thing was with these officers, they just don't know. And if you go search Google, how those algorithms work, that's the company that's going to pop up. And it may not be the best equipment, but however those algorithms work, they pop up. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So I guess looking at it from like a military perspective, and I'm sure law enforcement's the same way, but you get issued gear and it's like, okay, that's what I'm wearing, but everybody in the military, at least, everybody hears the old, saying, lowest bidder kind of thing. And when you really think about it, that's what you're getting. You're getting maybe some decent stuff, but it's not the best stuff that's out there. But unless you do your own research, you don't know any better. And I think that's where some of those tier 1 units in the Army, at least that I got the privilege to work with, they were given extra money to buy their own gear because those units acknowledge that, like, hey, the stuff the Army gives us is junk. So go find what works and buy that. So I guess what I've really come to find out with gear, because like you said, there's just so much of it out there and so many different companies making it. They all make it a little different, and it's kind of a crappy answer, but gear's expensive, and sometimes you spend a lot of money on gear and find out it still doesn't work. So the best thing that I've found is just do as much research as you can. Look at guys that are using it, see how it works for them. And sometimes you're going to have to pull the trigger and buy something. And if it doesn't work, that sucks. Hopefully you can sell it or give it to somebody else that it will work for. But yeah, it's just back to that training side of things, get the gear that you think will work based on as much knowledge as you can get, and then get it, try it. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's I think a lot of opportunity. There's not a lot of opportunity to kind of try and buy. Like guys are just looking at things on the internet. They're seeing it, you know, and they're like, okay, this looks good. But just like you said, you know, you're not going to be aware of the quality until you touch and feel, till you wear it, till you see how it kind of fits your body. And, you know, I think it's a big mistake, you know, a lot of times some of these police departments, and look, I understand, you know, I was in law enforcement, I was in the military, you know, they are buying in bulk quality. They can't look at each and every person and be like, okay, this, you know, this isn't going to fit you the right way. But there just seems to be something missing there. You know, because not everything fits people the same way. And you're going into an environment where you got to rely on this gear to save your life, you know, and it may fit one guy one way, but it's not fitting another guy the other way. And it just, you know, doesn't fit your body type, your build or whatever. And, you know, just something missing there. And I think law enforcement and even the military needs to look at some stuff, bring some product in, let the troops try it out and see what they like better. And not, instead of buying one big bulk, say, okay, there's going to be 4 distributors. Like, let's bring these people out. Let's try some different stuff on. You can pick from one of these 4. You know, we'll order that, but you know, try it on, see what fits you better, see what you're going to be more comfortable in a warfighting environment. Because you know, we all know. I mean, you know, I've been on surveillance for hours and hours, and you know, sitting in there wearing the vest, wearing the gear, and you know, some stuff's, you know, up in my neck because it just doesn't fit right, and you know, and then other stuff, you know, fits great. And I'm like, wow, I wish I would have had this 5 years ago, you know? So, you know, the SHOT Show, it's a good thing, you know, as distributors and consultants like John and I are, you know, going out there and actually being able to touch and feel gear, kind of look at it, see the quality. But I don't think a lot of troops and a lot of law enforcement guys go to a lot of these shows. They're not getting the opportunity to really T&E stuff a lot of times. And, you know, there's a lot of great stuff on the market that just isn't getting into the hands of the people that really need to use it. And, you know, we got to figure out a different way to do this, you know, where guys can get into a shop. And, you know, guys and girls, when I say guys, I mean everybody, just so you know, I mean men and women. But, you know, when we're out there, we got to give them this opportunity to really, you know, feel and evaluate gear before they're given something and say, hey, you got to use this, and it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, when I know some of like those tier 1 units in the Army, they will send some guys to shows, you know, but like your regular Army units, they're not going to that,
right?
You know, so they're kind of relying on those tier 1 units to say, oh, we want this, and we're going to push it down to them. Maybe, you know, maybe not.
Yeah.
So.
No, we run into a lot of tier 1 guys at the SHOT Show, and I think that's great. I think it's great that they're at least getting out there and you know, they're allowed, because I mean, look, those guys are war fighting all the time, you know, so and they're going into real austere environments and different stuff like that. So it's really good that they're getting out there and they're getting that opportunity. But you know, even, you know, the law enforcement side, you know, I mean, you know, these guys are using that gear every single day, 8 to 12 hour shifts. And, you know, if you're not comfortable, you're miserable, right? And, you know, gear's got to fit you right. I mean, we've seen all these back problems with law enforcement because gear just doesn't fit right. You know, law enforcement's gone from like a duty belt to more of a vest carrier to get the load off of cops' hips. And, you know, it's just allowing people to get out there and really, you know, figure out what gear is going to be better for our troops and for our law enforcement, that is going to make them better war fighters, better cops, better first responders. So it's you know, having a, you know, a store like yours, because you're looking to build a brick and mortar store, you know, people being able to go in there and actually try gear on is huge.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I mean, it's unfortunate, but you're right. Like, gear just doesn't fit everybody. And the way the military, and I'm sure law enforcement again is the same way, you know, oh, this will fit 80% of people, right? Who cares about the other 20%? They'll figure something out. You know, and that's not a very good way to look at things, in my opinion. But I mean, I get money wise, you know, where they're coming from on that. But at the same time, like, everybody's built differently, you know, like I make holsters as well. And like, I made a holster for John, and as soon as somebody comes in and wants a holster, like, I sit down and it's like, okay, how do you want this thing? Where are you carrying it? Inside, outside, drop, you know, do you want a hood? You know, what level of tension do you want? All that kind of stuff. And just something as simple as a holster, like, I could take 30 minutes figuring out exactly what all is going to go into it, how it's going to attach, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And again, that's just a holster. You look at plate carriers, slings, and mag pouches and all that stuff. Everybody pulls a mag from a different place.
Yeah.
What's comfortable, what works. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing you were saying there, is interesting is talking to, different members of, federal government that are in these special response teams that they're, I asked them, I was like, so how is it that you go about buying your equipment? They're like, oh, if we do training and we run into another guy that's, in a SWAT team or special response, we see, as a terminology of what they're rocking, and then all of a sudden we'll look at it, then we'll go purchase it. And that just kind of blows my mind that you have all these, men and women in these highly stressful jobs, more advanced jobs that are going out there. And they don't even know like what's the best on there. They're literally just bumping into somebody in training to figure it out. And that's what we're trying to figure out too. It's for all these people that do listen to this and they are, those keyboard warriors trying to find out. I mean, the one thing, that we offer and you offer as well is that they show up or ask us like saying, hey guys, I know you guys are going to SHOT Show. We're looking for NVGs or triggers. And I know you and I had that conversation, like what's the best trigger out there? And you said, hey, I like this one, because of this reason. And that's what we're trying to do, because the difference is with these guys on the keyboard is they're going to be paying MSRP where they go through, folks like us, there's ability to actually give them a better deal. And that's something that, that our company's striving for, because we figure if those folks are safe, we're going to be safe. And, in this day and age, obviously with inflation and everything's going on, it's not a lot of money out there and people are struggling, to get their departments to work. And that's something that, we just want to offer up, that if they're, if those folks are listening, if they're interested in something, like give us a call or call up Mike and say, hey, I got this question. But it's just literally, it's interesting, when, we made a sale with a federal agency here, they just said like, yeah, some guy saw it on the internet. We looked at it and, we just bought it. I'm like, that's it. And then we heard, from a special ops community, how they've sent some of their soldiers out to firearms events, to 3-gun meet, and they're literally watching these professional shooters, asking them like, what triggers are you using? What stock are you using? What, and it's just fascinating where you would think there would be this arena where people can just come together and just figure out what's the best on the market. Obviously, with all the different environments out there, what works in, Miami, Florida may not work in St. Paul, Minnesota. And, and then obviously with the winter months, things change. So it's just something that I know we're trying to do. And I, talking with you as well, same thing. So yeah, it's just, like I said, this next month we'll be at the SHOT Show. So we'll be, amazed to see what new technology comes out. But that's the thing. It's like whatever they had last year is now considered old, and what they're releasing this year is going to be new. So, for those folks that are trying to figure out, is if you don't know what the SHOT Show is, definitely go look it up on YouTube. They have tremendous videos. Or better yet, if you go, it's one of those things. It's like the Matrix. I can't tell you. You have to go see it. I mean, it's something where it's, I think, a 3 or 4 day event. And I think the first day we walked up to like 7.5 miles around there, and we only saw, like, I think at the end, and I think Fab will agree with me and our partner Sandra, I think we saw like 35-40% of the show in 4 days, and we were averaging 7.5 miles walking per day. There's just that much technology, that much innovation out there. And it's shocking when we talk to these people. They're like, oh, I heard of it. Or we send people there, or some people like, I never heard of it. And it's just, kind of mind boggling. But like, I was that guy too, 21 years. I never heard of it until I see Fab bring all this swag back and start having the conversation. So it's just something, I guess, for those folks out there that are listening, find and I guess, Mike, I'll ask you for your opinion, but it's like, go find someone like Mike that actually has a training, has expertise, does this for a living, on what, and again, in your opinion, what you think is the best out there. Save these guys some pain on the best, triggers out there. I mean, you can get kind of lost in what's the best trigger and why. And It's just one of those things that if we can solve this riddle, I think, we can make the world, a better place. But again, we're in this day and age of the information age, yet there's no information on any of this stuff.
Yeah. So, Mike, I'm going to throw a question out at you. I know a lot of people like to ask this question. So what's your EDC? What's your everyday carry?
So I carry a SIG 365.
Nice.
So one of the old school, like original ones that came out.
Oh, yeah.
So funny story about that. When I first got into making holsters, I actually melted the grip on it and had to change it out to a Wilson Combat grip because I just completely crushed the magwell.
Oh, man.
I heated it up and opened it up and used it still for a little while, but it made me so mad. A lesson that I learned, and thankfully on one of my own guns instead of somebody else's. But so I carry the 365. I just started carrying appendix. So I've got the 12 round mag in it and a 10 round spare on the appendix. So still getting used to it, but I actually really like the appendix carry.
Yeah, I switched to appendix probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really, and as you're probably figuring out, it's really about gear with the appendix, like the type of holster and how it fits. Because if it's there in the front, you want something that's going to ride and in that pocket pretty well and not be stabbing you in the femoral, when you're sitting down. And for me, I like a wing on it to push the grip back toward my body so it doesn't flag as much. But I just switched to that 365, the Spectre, and it's great. I love shooting it. But how do you feel about red dot? So I just added the Romeo red dot on it, and I never shot with red dots throughout my whole career. Always iron sights, but I have to say that this last 6 months going to the range with the red dot, it's incredible. I've always been a good shooter, and it just makes me a way even better shooter. So it's cool.
Yeah. So funny enough, with the whole firearms industry, a lot of the improvements you can actually look to the competitive world for, because red dots is something that the competitive shooters started, and now it's just transitioned to everybody. And I'm the same way. I ran just regular old iron sights until about maybe a year and a half ago. I built a gun and put a red dot on it, and man, the first time I shot that thing with that red dot, I was like, this is a game changer. Just speed increased, accuracy, slight increase, but I mean, it does have a learning curve to it.
But finding it, getting that good grip, pushing it out in front of your eyes, finding the red dot quick. I mean, that for me was definitely. And knowing it's not lined up actually with the sights, like you're shooting at the red dot, like not trying to find your iron sights through this, and just rely on the red dot.
Just looking completely over the sights, and it's like this feels so weird.
For sure.
But no, once I switched to it's total. Like I love it. Like if I could run red dot on every gun, I probably would.
Yeah, so ICE, the agency John and I work for, has started incorporating it into our agents that are coming out into the field. So now at the academy, they'll start off on the iron sights, but they're incorporating them into red dot, and they're leaving the academy with a red dot on their firearm. And just the improvements that they've seen, even in the basic shooters that they're teaching, the firearm scores have gone up. I mean, I think it's very important that they learn how to shoot with their iron sights, obviously, because technology has a way of going to shit when you need it the most, and you have to be able to shoot with your iron sights. But knowing if you take care of your gear and you're checking the battery and you're making sure your gear's working before you get on duty, I mean, it's a game changer, and I think we're going to see better shots on target. Not all the rounds going all over the place and potentially hitting innocent people. We're going to see just a much more surgical law enforcement, military as we really start to transition into more using the red dot.
Yeah, absolutely. And even back when I was in the Army, we had red dots on our rifles, and I mean, that was the first time I had shot with a red dot on a rifle, and it was so easy. And so seeing that transition onto handguns, it's definitely something that helps out in a lot of ways. But going back to good fundamentals, good grip, knowing how to align those iron sights is a good foundation to start with. So
Awesome. Do you carry a knife daily?
I do.
What's your blade?
So I have it on me, obviously. It's just a Kershaw that I got when I got it free from the USCCA a few years ago. Nice. And I've been carrying it forever. And I've also got EDC light as well.
Oh, nice. I was actually going to ask that. A lot of people do carry. That's the one thing I don't, man. I'm guilty of it. I got it in the side panel of my truck.
Yeah.
But look at you, John. John's got it. I've always got my blade. I'm an old school Spyderco guy.
Yeah.
I've had this Spyderco for 22 years.
Yeah.
Just love it. It's light, fits in my pocket pretty well. But both you guys are carrying flashlights. I gotta get on the flashlight game, man.
Well, and I have a light on my bedside gun, like a weapon mounted light. But I figured for carrying, I don't like carrying with the light on.
No,
just because carrying
more
appendix,
bulky.
it's just, too much bulk for me. I know a lot of people do it. But for me personally, I'd rather just carry the light, because that way if I don't have to draw and I can just shine a light and see what's going on, I'd rather not get arrested for drawing a gun and shining a light on somebody.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I went to the regular flashlight. So.
Nice. Well, tell us about what's coming up in the future, and then we'll end the show.
So I am certified through the USCCA as an instructor. We are, as you mentioned at the beginning, looking at expanding because we are home-based currently. We've been doing this since about, like I said, 2020. But we are looking to move to a storefront where we're going to have an on-site classroom. We are looking at doing an on-site range, probably like an indoor Connex type range. But we'll have that on-site. Not sure when that'll happen, but we're looking to be moving. We're actually going to look at a building tomorrow. So we're hoping that by, end of first quarter 24, we'll be ready to open doors on a brick and mortar storefront. And then once we do that, we're looking at running classes every day, CCW classes every weekend kind of thing. So.
Awesome. Sounds like you got a good future lined up ahead of you, and best of luck to you, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We're just working hard to try to get this thing going, because again, going back to the training thing, it's that helping out the community, not just the 2A community, but also our own local community as well. So having that responsibly armed, community is a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, Mike, I was going to say, again, thanks for spending time with us. Much appreciated. And also, too, how can people get a hold of you if they're looking at, I know here in the Phoenix area, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So we're on Google, just Fenrir Gunworks, FENRIR Gunworks, GUNWORKS. So we're on Google. We have a website, www.fenrirgunworks.com. All of our contact info is on the website and on Google both. So email, call, text, anything works.
Awesome.
Perfect. Again, Mike, thanks for taking the time for us. It's always great talking to you. And too, obviously, we talked last time. You need any help with that move, let me know. I'll be the first guy down there to offer up my truck, and definitely will be working for the pizza and beer as you offered. So we'll
Sounds good.
But again, thanks a lot for everything. And those in the Phoenix area, like I said, I know there's a lot of folks in the Border Patrol out here, myself, trust Mike, and actually got a lot of modifications done to a few firearms I had. And like I said, he'll be my go-to guy when it comes to firearms modification. So again, Mike, thanks for everything, and we'll chat with you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.